I was working as a clerk at the downtown Seattle library when I was in high school, my teenage years, and this kind of disheveled looking white-haired man came in every once in a while asking for materials in the business department on streetcar companies. And I introduced myself and he introduced himself. His name was Leslie Blanchard, and he was putting together research material for a book on Seattle streetcars. And after that book was published in 1968, I found a copy down at Shorey's bookstore at 3rd and Columbia, and I just studied every page of it. Just was really interested in what public transportation in Seattle looked like over the course of the last 100 and some years. And it was just a fascinating story. The early private companies, the kind of the rush of every entrepreneurial person in Seattle to be part of a streetcar company, and the tie-in with real estate development, how all of the neighborhoods kind of developed around streetcar lines. Just a fascinating story. The trend towards, or the movement towards municipal ownership, and how that came about ultimately with the city paying incredibly inflated price that ultimately bankrupted the system. And I think that kind of the human drama of trying to keep this system going all through the 1920s and 1930s, when they could just barely afford to pay the employees, and near collapse, near shutdown on many occasions. So the ingenuity, the resourcefulness, just all the ability to keep things going really impressed me as part of this overall story. And then I think that the conversion to buses was more than anything else an attempt to completely remake the image of transportation, public transportation in Seattle, as much as it was the thought that streetcars were old-fashioned and obsolete. That was a big part of the whole story. So I've just been interested in Seattle streetcars ever since, and the work that went into researching this book made me even a stronger advocate of its history. Well, I think that what was really lost with the abandonment of streetcars in Seattle was the places where they ran on private right-of-way, where they were on their own, not being interfered with by other traffic, and basically able to keep their schedules, their reliability, and their speed intact. And essentially that's what modern day light rail does. It's the same technology, a car running on rails, electrically powered, getting its energy from overhead wires, able to carry lots of people because now they run in trains. They're viable because they're separated from other traffic. There's a few places where there may be crossings of street traffic and so forth, but for the most part they're separate, and that really has made a huge difference in why I think ultimately light rail will become kind of the prominent kind of public transportation in Seattle. Thinking back now, it was 1996 when the voters gave the first go-ahead to build a light rail line in Seattle, and that's been 25 years, and it's going to take another 25 years probably to get a full system going here in the city. Well, creativity in the face of adversity. That was a real common theme during the Great Depression. Even though there was tremendous unemployment, the economy was in shambles, there was enormous amounts of brain power applied to certain things, and we have a lot to be thankful for what came out of that decade. Everything from all the works progress administration projects, the campgrounds, the lodges, the structures, roads, even the electrification of the Pennsylvania Railroad. Those were all things that came out of the Great Depression that were just magnificent pieces of engineering and things that were really needed. And that had the side effect, of course, of keeping people employed. And so I think that kind of spirit was evident in the management of the municipal railway during the 1930s in Seattle. That by golly, if we can just keep this thing going for a little while longer, we'll be over the hump. And ultimately that did happen, but the streetcars were the casualty here of that changeover. Well, there's so many of them that were really fascinating. I know that I always thought that you could do a book just on Fremont. And Fremont, nicknamed the center of the universe, or the hub of the universe, was truly the hub of the North End, North Seattle streetcar network. There was, during the rush hours, there was a streetcar passing through Fremont about every 50 seconds. It was just a really busy place. And part of that was because the Fremont Car Barn was nearby, just a block off of Fremont Avenue near the bridge. The junction of Fremont Avenue and North 34th Street was what they call a Grand Union. That was the only Grand Union in Seattle. That's where you could basically approach that intersection from any of the street legs and turn in any direction. And that Grand Union is still mostly there, just buried under the asphalt. So, Fremont, just as a place to watch and observe streetcars, must have just been an incredible location. Then the other interesting part of Seattle streetcar history is the Queen Anne counterbalance. And that was a really ingenious solution of how you get a rail car up a steep hill, a steep grade, reliably and safely, day in and day out. And it combined elements of the earlier cable car technology with the traditional electric streetcar technology. Basically having an underground cable powered not by an electric motor or a steam engine, but by a counterbalance, pulling the cars up the hill and then slowing their descent coming down the hill. Really ingenious idea, simple, it worked. It was somewhat labor intensive because you had to have someone on the ground there basically to hook up the cable to the electric streetcar and unhook it when it wasn't needed anymore. So that was probably my favorite single line, the number 26 West Queen Anne, which ran up and down the counterbalance. One of the interesting things is how the expansion of the streetcar system really developed the north end of downtown. Pioneer Square was the original center of downtown, and the cable car lines kind of funneled into Pioneer Square. And they started doing that in 1888. The first line, the Esler line, started that year. But then the electric streetcars really helped in the expansion of downtown to the north. That network developed somewhat later, and by the 1920s, it was clear that the north end of downtown was the real hub, and that's where the retail district developed. That's really where the really heavy pedestrian volumes developed. The other interesting thing was how one of the early cable car lines, the Front Street Cable Railway, developed the Denny Hill area. Just hard to imagine what we now call the Denny regrade, pretty much flat all throughout. was a hill. It was a big hill and a big obstacle in many respects to northward development. And the Front Street Cable Railway went up First Avenue, jogged one block to the east onto Second Avenue, and then went over the top of the hill down to Denny Way, and then up Queen Anne Hill as a cable car line, eventually replaced by the counterbalance. So yes, streetcars definitely had a major influence on the development of downtown, and its role that started in the teens as a regional financial center for the entire Northwest, headquarters for major companies, all the things that really make for a strong and vital downtown. A major streetcar and cable car barn was constructed about 1891 on the northeast corner of this intersection. And originally it handled both cable cars and electric streetcars. The cable cars provided the connection to downtown, and there was a network of electric streetcars that branched off to Broadway, to Madrona Park, even out to Beacon Hill from this point. So you took that electric streetcar to this point, and then to get downtown, you took the cable car down James Street. So that James Street cable car operation lasted all the way until 1940, and at that time, everything that was rail-based transit in Seattle disappeared after 1941, and the electric streetcar that operated along here was the number 11 East Cherry line, and it operated from the Madrona district along Jefferson Street, and then up Broadway to Pike, and then down Pike Street to downtown Seattle. So if you were going to the south end of downtown, say somewhere near the Smith Tower, you got off the East Cherry streetcar here and you transferred to the cable. If you were going to the north end of downtown, near the retail district, the department stores and so forth, you stayed on the East Cherry car and it would take you directly there.